Hello and welcome to our first installment of our video interview with expert series for Omics SD, where we discuss the rapidly expanding field of digital biology. Today we have with us Dr. Hal Hoffman. He's a highly respected and world-renowned expert in pediatric rare disease and allergy. Hal, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm a MD, so I'm a physician scientist, which means I went to medical school, and then I did my clinical training in pediatrics, and then followed that up with specialty training in allergy immunology. So what that means from a doctor standpoint is I take care of kids that have allergies and immune problems.
And you also have some expertise in rare disease as well.
Yeah, so my research interest is in kids and families that have super rare diseases, very unique diseases involving the immune system. Those diseases can be diseases in which the immune system is sort of overactive, and also diseases in which the immune system is not working as well as it should be. Yeah, well, my interest in this whole field started actually early on in high school and college because I always liked genetics. And the part of the clinical history that I most enjoy when I talk to patients is that part where I sort of try to understand what runs in families and where they potentially got the problems that they got. And that led to me becoming interested in sort of rare inherited diseases, which then led to me identifying diseases and then searching for genes.
Okay, so this labor of love sounds like it's been a successful journey so far. Can you share with us a transformative experience that has really inspired your research?
The first big genetics project I worked on, we've had, it's been a long process, but we've had a lot of success, where we started with patients that had this very rare disease, and then we're able to, from their DNA, identify the gene that causes their disease, and then be able to find out what that gene does and how it affects your immune system, and finally be able to apply medications that actually treat those same patients that we started with. The disease that we have had the most success and sort of gone from beginning to end with is this condition known as familial cold autoinflammatory syndrome. Mm-hmm. It's a disease that runs in families, starts very early in life, and you live with it your entire life. The symptoms are primarily rash, fever, joint pain, muscle pain, and these symptoms happen after exposure to cold.
That's bizarre.
It's very unusual. This is not something most doctors have ever heard of or ever seen, and many patients, knew they had something, but they'd go to the doctor, and the doctor didn't know what they had and didn't know what to do for them.
How would you even go about then starting to hunt down a gene that links to a particular disease?
The way we were doing genetics back 15 years ago was find as many patients and families as you could, collect their DNA, and then use a few different technologies to try to track down the location of that gene. And the basic idea is you want to compare patients that have the disease to patients in the family that don't have the disease, compare their DNA in a number of different ways, and use statistical programs to come up with the location of the gene. And that was the way we used to do it.
So you've been hunting genes, you're a gene hunter. How long have you been doing this, hunting genes?
Started about 15 or 20 years ago.
Okay.
We had a lot of success with this one disease I was telling you about, the cold-induced disease. It took a fair amount of time. Just from sort of beginning to decide I wanted to identify the gene, started with collecting samples and then doing the DNA analysis, and then basically just sequencing anything that looked like a gene in the region that we were interested in. It took about 4 years.
What has your experience been like meeting these families?
Really, really positive. These families are usually extremely appreciative. When you have a rare disease, you feel like you're alone and no one else, no one else knows what you have, no one else understands what you have. And so just the fact of, telling them that you're interested in what they have to say and that you're trying to help them, you get a great response. And then it also makes you feel good as well. So the latest project that we think we've identified a gene for is a disease that we've followed the patients for a year or so, but we actually got the DNA from them, and within a few weeks we actually had a potential
Wow.
gene.
So
Now we still need to confirm that,
Okay.
but we are pretty sure we've actually identified a new disease gene in this particular family.
So from 4 years to 2 weeks.
Those are extremes.
Yeah.
Well, not even 4 years is not even extreme, but 2 weeks is pretty extreme.
So would you say that the reduction in the amount of time has to do with new technologies now, with advances?
Yeah, almost completely. It's technology. One, it's the technology that allows us to generate massive amounts of DNA sequence really quickly. But that's just half the story. The other half of the story is really the whole part of the omics revolution, which is the ability to analyze big data and look at that data in a meaningful way, trust that data, and come up with potential results. And that involves both high-power computers that can sort of figure out how to look at the data. Involves some really smart people that actually know how to write the programs that can try to put together the important things and try to get rid of the less important things. And then involves some smart people that can actually look at the data and go, wait a second, that actually looks like it could be the cause of this disease.
So given that there's all these new technologies available now in genomics, what are you most excited about in your work that possibly these new technologies will be applied in?
Obviously, one of the most exciting things is the ability to do work without having to collect hundreds of patients, but to be able to do something with a few samples and make a difference, right away for a family, I think makes a big difference. The other really exciting part is sort of comes with the more we learn about these genes, the more we may be able to target these genes or target pathways related to those genes. So in the first case, with the patients with the cold-induced syndrome that I told you about, by identifying the gene that causes that disease, we were able to fairly quickly learn from a collaboration all around the world what that gene does, how it confuses and messes up the immune system to act like it's having an infection and produce all these chemical mediators called cytokines. And then we're able to use drugs that were actually already had been on the market for other diseases and repurpose them to use them for this rare disease. And so those patients that I told you about that we've initially followed, it took 4 years to find the gene for, within a few years after that, we actually had a treatment that worked really well for them, that they could take to completely block their symptoms. And within a few years after that, we actually had FDA approval, and now there's 3 drugs that are FDA approved for this one super rare disease.
That's amazing. So the technologies then are getting you faster to a treatment.
Exactly.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you can think of that you would want to say to any science enthusiast that is listening right now?
It's a great time to be interested in science because of all the amazing technology. I think we're finally getting to the point where where our knowledge and technology are at a level that we can actually make a difference in patients' lives.
I find it fascinating, and I am so excited to be at the forefront of all your amazing discoveries and all the work you're going to continue to do. And we're very honored that you spent time with us today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.
Oh, and we're so fortunate to have Dr. Broderick in the lab today.
Hi, Stephanie.
Lori. How are you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good.
Thanks for coming by.
I'm so happy to be here. So, could you tell us a little bit about your role in the lab?
Absolutely. So I'm my own project scientist. I work on a number of different projects alongside Dr. Hoffman. We work on gene discovery, and I'm specifically working on some new immunodeficiencies, and he recently found the gene for us. I'm very excited.
That is exciting. So you found the gene for one immunodeficiency, or did you say deficiencies?
So I am working on my second one. That's in the very early stages. That was just about 2 weeks ago.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yes, I'm very excited. So, the most important things that we try to do are to help patients. And so even if we have a little bit of gene discovery that can target a pathway, at least it gives us hope, and it gives the families hope that there may be something in the future that we can do.
Right. So how do you go about trying to find these genes for the immunodeficiencies?
I think the biggest thing is just remembering to ask questions. So I see a lot of complex patients in my clinic, and think about the different molecular pathways that could be leading to their disease. A lot of our patients don't have known diagnoses, and so rather of thinking in terms of what's the diagnosis, what lab tests do I need, in my mind I try to think about the cytokine pathways in the cells that come together that may be causing their specific symptoms.
Okay. So kind of a bird's eye view of what's going on first.
Exactly.
Instead of thinking about it, what experiment can I run?
Exactly. We try to think outside the box a lot.
That's great. And I think the most important impact is the impact on the patients and the families.
Absolutely. I try to be very honest with them and just explain we may not know exactly what's going on, but if we can think of a molecular plan, then that can really help them. And a lot of families just want to know that somebody's interested in their kids and trying to find an answer, whether or not that will happen with their own child in their own lives or whether that will help another child down the road. That's a really big step for a lot of families with unknown diagnoses.
Right, I can imagine. Absolutely. So, Lori, is there anything else you would like to add for any science enthusiasts out there that are interested in this type of work?
Keep asking questions. That's the biggest thing that I can say, is as long as you have a question, there will be experiments to do and answers to be found.
Great. I'm so excited that you found a new gene 2 weeks ago.
So am I. I'm thrilled.
Those are the type of discoveries when you know your hard work is paying off, and I know you work really hard.
We try.
We appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys came by.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.